Hi Red Base, it's Misty. I'm here to share another story with you again today. My story is about Paddington Bear at the carnival. Now this story is written by Michael Bond and is illustrated by R.W. Alley. So the title of my story is Paddington at the Carnival. Let's have a look at Paddington. He has got a badge and his badge says number 1. So I think that Paddington must have came first. He must have won first prize in something. He's got his suitcase with him and it's got B. It's got B written on it. The letter B. Let's turn the page and see what the story is all about. Turning the pages. One day, Paddington's friend, Mr. Grubber, took him on a surprise outing to a part of London known as Little Venice. It's called Little Venice because it's by a canal, he explained, and every spring they hold a big carnival. Boats come from all over the country to take part in the celebration. Paddington always enjoyed his days out with Mr. Grubber. He waved as one of the boats went past. All the people on board waved back. Let's have a look at the picture. You see Paddington waving. Can you see all the boats on the river? Balloons. People. Let's turn the page and see what happens next. I've never been for a ride on the canal before, said Paddington. Who knows, said Mr. Grubber mysteriously. Perhaps you will before the day's out. But first of all, we must see what else is happening. We don't want to miss anything important. Can you see Paddington looking at Mr. Grubber as he talks to him? And what else is happening in the picture? Who else is having conversations? Let's continue the story. He pointed to a board showing all the different events. But there were so many, Paddington didn't know which to try first. How about the Busy Bee Adventure Trail? Suggested Mr. Grubber. You have to find as many things as possible, beginning with the letter B. Let's turn the page over and see where this adventure takes us. Paddington thought that sounded like a very good idea, especially when Mr. Grubber told him the first prize was a free boat ride for 2. Bears are good at trails, Mr. Grubber, he explained. Looking around, he could already see lots of things beginning with the letter B, apart from B for board. There was a boy blowing bubbles, a man eating a bagel, and another with a broom, a barbecue, and a lady selling bananas. There were boats everywhere and lots of balloons. There was even a man playing the banjo in a band. Let me show you. Let me see if you can recognize anything that can you see anything? Can you recognise anything that Paddington saw that begins with B. Let's turn the page and see what else is happening. After Paddington had finished writing them all down, he and Mr. Grubber set off along the canal. In no time at all, Paddington had added 5 other items to his list. First there was B for bridge, and then blackbird, buttercup, blossom, and butterfly. Can you see Paddington with his paper and his pencil, and he's writing things down, and Mr. Grubber is keeping a watchful eye on him. I can see something else beginning with B. Can you? I think it's called binoculars. Can you see the bridge? Can you see the blackbird? Can you see the buttercup? And can you see the butterfly? Let's turn the page over and see what happens next. I've just spotted the butterfly. Let's turn the page over. They hadn't gone very far when they saw a lady feeding some ducks. She was wearing a bonnet and a blouse fastened at the neck with a brooch, and around her wrist she wore a bracelet. Can you tell what all those things began with? What letter? Those ducks look really hungry. When she saw Paddington, she smiled and said, "Would you like some?" "Thank you very much," said Paddington. He wrote down bag and bread. He then raised his hat politely and said, "Busy Bee Adventure Trail makes you very hungry." Let's turn the page and see what he does next. "This is the sort of day out I like, Mr. Grubber," Paddington announced as he took a jar of marmalade from his suitcase and began making a sandwich. Mr. Brown, Mr. Grubber gave a cough. "I think you were really meant to give the bread to the ducks." Before Paddington had time to reply, there was a loud buzzing noise and something landed on his marmalade. Paddington gave the object a hard stare before adding B to his list. What do you think landed on his sandwich? There's Paddington, and there's his sandwich. That looks like a bee. And look at his pocket. He's got his notebook in his pocket and his pen. He's having quite an adventure, isn't he? There's his suitcase and his marmalade. And that's Paddington enjoying his sandwich. And Mr. Grubber, he's quite amused. And the lady is still feeding the ducks. I think the ducks want some of the sandwich. Anyway, let's turn the page and see what happens next. Next, it came upon a nice man fishing. "I think you've struck lucky, Mr. Brown," whispered Mr. Grubber. He waited patiently while Paddington wrote down box, followed by beret, beard, belt, buckle, boots, bucket and basket. "Would you like to have a try?" asked the man. "You can use some of my worms if you like." Paddington thought that was a very good idea, but first he wrote B for bait. He wrote B for bait. Can you remember what else he wrote? He wrote B for beret, beard, belt, buckle, bucket and basket and boots. What an adventure he's having. Let's turn the page over and see what happens next. "If you're going in for the busy bee competition," said the man, "you should watch out. There's a boy following you. I think he's up to no good." Paddington was about to say thank you when he felt a tug on the fishing line. "I think it might be too big to go in my jar, whatever it is," he exclaimed. "It feels like for whale." "I'm not sure you'll find any whales this far inland, Mr. Brown," said Mr. Grubber tactfully. All the same, to be on the safe side, Mr. Grubber tied some rope around his friend. Why do you think he tied some rope around Paddington? I think it's to stop him falling into the river. What do you think? Let's turn the page over and see what happens. Can you see what's happening? "Strike me pink," said the fisherman. "It's a bicycle." Paddington was most disappointed. "Never mind," said Mr. Grubber. "At least it's another word for your list." What word could it be? Paddington found a bicycle in the river, and Mr. Grubber said it's another word for his list. It's a bicycle. Turn the page over. That looks like a very funny picture. Paddington is riding the bicycle and Mr. Grubber is holding him steady on the bicycle. Shortly afterwards, they came upon a stretch of water with high banks and trees on either side. Paddington decided to have a go at riding the bicycle, but he soon discovered why it had been thrown away. "I think I'd better hold the other end, Mr. Grubber," he gasped, pointing to the rope still tied around his waist, "in case I fall in the canal." Mr. Grubber was about to explain that if he did that, there would be nothing for anyone else to hold on to, when he saw the look on Paddington's face. "Is anything the matter, Mr. Brown?" he asked. "I think we're being followed. It's a B for bush, Mr. Grubber," hissed Paddington. "Come back," shouted Mr. Grubber, "whoever you are." Meanwhile, Paddington added binoculars to his list. He added binoculars. Let's turn the page over and see what happens next.